So my
Gotcha.
project was managing critical data for lease
I'm
expiration.
not seeing on the. Yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So my project was managing critical dates for lease expiration, and as a real estate portfolio of almost 2,800 properties, 70% of our portfolio is leased, and so we have leases that are constantly rolling over that we have to renew or make decisions on. And the reason why I chose this project is because we didn't have a standard operating procedure nor a tool to help us do the administration on these leases. And so all of the lease administration was done in a decentralized environment and on an ad hoc basis, with each office kind of having autonomous ownership of how they did leases. So the tool that I wanted to develop was help us identify that when the leases were going to expire 9 months in advance, so that we can flag which leases we're going to get ready for expiration, but yet at the same time have plenty of time, almost 9 months, to be able to make some critical decisions on whether or not do we renew the lease, do we dispose of the lease, do we dispose and relocate into a new office? And so the idea is that we would have plenty of time to make good informed decisions because we had advance notice as opposed to making reactionary decisions and just giving into the landlord's request of expiring leases or letting them roll over into new leases. So the idea was to get ahead of these and make good, well-informed decisions by getting this on the radar well in advance. And so, in the key performance indicators before this project started was in our database we had greater than 780 expired leases. So as we started establishing the process and thinking about the tool that we wanted to build out, and as that was being developed and deployed, we were able to reduce those expired leases by 42% because we actually came up with a process. And then what we did was we took that process and we automated it and actually built a technology tool within our asset management database um, that now sends notifications and alerts to the field prior to the expiration, and it puts it on our radar, on our dashboard, so that we're able to see which leases are going to be impacted and take proactive measures to be able to work with the field in helping them with their decision. So that's essentially the summary of what this project entailed. Um, so let's see here. Let me go to the next slide. Do you have questions so far, Carlos?
No, this is great. Maybe if you can walk me through a little bit more about the action plan and what are some of the actions that you took to complete the project, I think that would be great.
Okay, so the initial, this all started through our brainstorming, right? We saw a major problem. We have, $70 million in leases annually. It's a big number, and that there's really no way to manage it. We saw that there's a lack in the field of expertise. We saw that we don't have a clear process, and so the first thing was let's brainstorm. Since we already have a tool, our asset management database, how can we build a functionality within that tool to help streamline this project? And so we started brainstorming. That's essentially me, June, Kristen, Richard, who is our project manager, and Sunil, who's a developer, offshore developer. And so the initial things were just, conversations. And then those conversations ended up turning into business requirements. And so I'll share with you right now kind of the things that I came up with as far as my requirements to help the development team understand what it is that I'm trying to achieve. And based on those requirements, they were able to go back and kind of quantify the amount of effort that needs to go into this development and how much it was going to cost. And then based on that, I would be able to make a decision um, whether or not I'd be able to go through with that or not. And it all worked out well because it was a very cost effective tool when you look at the whole big picture. For very little money, we're able to build a system that brings a lot of value because now we can make better informed financial decisions for these offices over a long term. And essentially, I think that it will pay itself back. And so the development team then from there went and did the actual development part of it. And so what they do is when they develop it, they put it in a stage server, and then I go back into the stage server and I test the functionality to make sure that it's meeting the requirements. And then once it's done in stage, we report all the bugs, we work out all of the issues that the system is having, and then from there it's deployed into our production server. So now it's actually been deployed in our production server, and so notifications go out, and the system is working fine so far. So that's kind of the action plans, the process of the action plans that I had to take.
Nice. Thank you, brother. What about lessons learned? What are some of the things that you learned along the way as you were implementing this project?
Uh, Anything that touches other departments, it always becomes a challenge because there's things in here that got stuck because I'm dependent on another department. So in this case, it's IT, right? So our messaging tool needed to be able to integrate it into our overall Lotus Notes tool that we have. And so that integration involved our internal IT working with our external development team to figure out how to make that happen. So I think the lesson learned was ask those questions in advance to get to identify what some of those risks and barriers are going to be so that it doesn't get stalled in the midst of the project. And that's what happened, right? So even though our development team was able to lay it out and build a tool, the messaging functionality failed for several reasons, and our internal IT had to figure out how to make that happen for us. So I think the lesson learned was get ahead of that before you start the project, identify what that would look like, so that in the midst of the project you won't have any delays.
Brother, let me stop the recording.